other than interest rates, in today's world of financing? What do you think I get the most questions about financing now? Yes.
Assistance.
Yes. Anything else? I've thought about it last time. Bridge loans. Bridge loans, renovation loans. And so we do have sources for bridge loans. Actually, I'm working with a customer now, and his house is worth about $600,000. He owns it free and clear, and he wants to buy a $1.6 million house. But he doesn't want to sell prior to buying because he doesn't know in this market, he doesn't want to be homeless. So please always check with me about options of bridge loans. Bridge loans could be sometimes defined as home equity line of credits or loans, and then others are truly the bridge loan where we're taking the equity out of the house. We have 6 months to sell it, and so forth and so on. And then you guys still get to list the property for your customers, so you do not miss out on the commission. So just keep that in mind. I've got 2 going right now that we're trying to work out details on, so that's exciting. And then the other information or questions I get is, what about renovation loans? So we offer renovation loans. You can do renovation loans on VA, USDA, FHA, and conventional. And the FHA has gone from $35,000 to $50,000 without having to get a HUD certification inspector involved. So please keep that in mind, because right now, when they're the existing homes, there are first-time home buyers can buy, and I'm speaking through my daughter because she's under contract to buy a house now. Everyone that they looked at, it was like, Mom, but the house is sold, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. And if it was renovated, some renovations are not as nice as others. So we were just talking about different things for her, but they were trying to stay in a certain point of price. So anyway, you can always contact me. I'm available weekends and nights and evenings. I keep my phone on me most of the time. If I was free cleaning up in the attic, I might be a little bit delayed. That's one chore I have to do. And then all of a sudden I realize, where did I put my phone? And it's downstairs. But anytime, you guys are welcome. Enjoy your day today. I'm off to a Parade of Homes meeting. Remember Parade of Homes, April 26th weekend and May 1st, 3rd and 4th weekend. We're here to support you guys. Thank you again. Take care. Okay, good. What's not, you just text me and I'll speak.
Yes, ma'am. I can't say enough good things about Parade of Homes. That's my Super Bowl. I'm a nerd about it. So I absolutely love it. And it's a great time for you guys to get out, see the inventory that's out there. It's such good content to post on social media, tell your clients about it. So if you've never been to a Parade of Homes, it's where the builders just try to show off their properties, and it's just a good way to just see all the inventory that's out there and what people are doing. So I'm going to get us started. I'm going to move quickly because I have what I consider the 2 queens of real estate in here, and I am completely honored because both of them have been major influences in my life and my career, and I'm just grateful for both of them. So anyway, they probably don't need any introduction, but I'm gonna introduce them anyway. So Beth Hines was the first broker I ever worked for, the very first RE/MAX I ever worked for. She has and still has the #1 team, or one of the #1 teams in Johnston County and surrounding. She's the queen of Wayne County, Princeton, all the areas. So she's always run a very successful business and a very successful team. So I'm very excited to have her come up. And then Sharon Evans, based out of Wake County, but she is also a huge queen, runs an amazing business, and just does so much with her team. One of the things I also love is both of these women are still in production. That's not something you find out of team leaders that have been in the business for over 15, 20 years. And so I think that's a huge feather in their cap, that they are in the trenches alongside their agents, know what they're dealing with, what they're going through, and they've been able to adjust with the different markets as they have come and gone. So they're going to tell you a little bit about how they did it, and I'll speak from some of my experience too. So you ladies, come on up. Very informal here. Looks more formal than it is. So, and we're definitely going to have Q&A. I've got some prompt questions that we prepared. Some of them we have gotten from some of you, so thank y'all. But we're just going to hit some high level things. But if you want us to get more into the weeds, this is truly a panel. We just kind of want to be here for you guys, help you learn and know all the things that you may ever want to learn and know about how we have built the businesses that we have. So Oh, good. Of course you did.
What'd she do?
Did she put her notes together? So
Just in case.
I need to go on my brain.
listen, I told him, I was like, you don't have to be prepared. We're not doing presentation. This is literally Q&A and it's all about what you do all day, every day. So don't be nervous. One of the first questions that gets asked all the time, what systems or processes have been the most instrumental in scaling your business to top producer status?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a very big overarching question. So some people, feel free to get in the weeds or feel free to just talk about structure, whatever you feel like has made one of the biggest instrumental differences in scaling from being just in production to being a top producer. I love why you're looking at me right now.
I just think that whole transition of just growing and growing and growing and growing, I really did it with spiral notebooks like that. It sounds crazy, but that's all I had for years, And then I've got they're actually, I use ones that are probably about 2/3 that size. They were just under my arm. I took them everywhere and everything. So I didn't lose it. And then I transitioned a few years ago to this iPad Pro. And so I keep all my notes, everything. And then it goes to my phone, it's centralized and I can go everywhere with it. And then of course we've gone to CRMs and things of that nature, but that's just truly where I kept the base of everything in my life was just attached to me at all times in some way.
I know you're gonna say about the same thing, but go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I just still do like paper and pencil to write things down when you're driving down the road to make sure you don't forget anybody. CRM's huge now for sure. If you can find the right one, there's tons of them to choose from. That may be another question. I can't remember, but I do think that's huge just to make sure there's lots of them out there, different ones to choose from, but keeping up with your database and who you called and make sure you follow up with them.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into one of the next questions, which is, what CRM do you use? And I know for probably most of us, we've been through the gamut of them. And if you've ever heard anybody talk about a CRM, the best CRM out there is which one? One you use.
Yeah.
And you're looking at 3 people who didn't have one for a long time. And so that's why we still, if you see me, I have a notebook all the time too, because I ride or die by my notepads and notebooks that we have going around, because there's so much going on all the time. And we all like to think that we have the capacity for everything, but we really don't. And so I think it's important what Sharon was saying, and Beth was alluding to is we have to write the things down when they happen. And then we also have to take time to go back and make sure that we are putting the proper things in the proper places. So for instance, what CRM do you use right now?
All of us.
And what about you?
I'm using more than one, but we use Top Producer and Boomtown.
Okay, perfect. I mean, again, there's not a wrong one. We just started using Vault Boss because Sharon has been singing its praises for 2 years, so I listen to what she says. But we were using KV Core before that, loved KV Core, had Top Producer before that. And it was just, wherever you're at in your business, the biggest thing you can do for yourself is staying consistent in front of your clients. And the best way to do that, I think we can all admit, we've not been good about going back to the front of that notebook and following up with everybody we wrote down and everything. And that's why it's so important that even if you're writing everything down, at some point in time, it's going into a CRM, because the hardest part about growing and scaling is people getting left in the dust because you're growing and scaling. So I think I skipped ahead to one of the downfalls of growing and scaling. And I know for me, that's been the number one. Are there any other systems y'all feel like are very important for agents to invest in?
I think for me, one of the biggest things is, which are probably everybody's using them, like Google Sheets and documents and things like that on your phone. If you're trying to find something in a hurry, like even something as general, if you have a lot of listings, finding your lockbox codes and things like that, the Google Sheets, you can have all the addresses right there and just pull them right up on your apps on your phone.
Yeah, I think Amazon has unfortunately ruined us. We're no longer in the day with, let me get you that answer and I'll get back to you. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody has that kind of time. They're going to try to find the answer as fast as they can before you can. And so it's kind of made us have everything at our fingertips every chance that we can. That and the industry's just evolved into that way.
And I just went to the class that they had at Tina's office maybe a week ago on boards. And I now see a lot of potential for building a lot of things out that you need at your fingertips all the time, whether it's neighborhood information for new construction, which I'm just doing more of, and you guys have done for a long time, or I don't know, just anything. Maybe you want your bio presentation or your bio on you and some reviews, or you know, just almost anything, you max some things that you can think of, you can board it, like put on these boards.com.
Has everybody in here heard of boards? Okay, so it's a new thing. We have always lived off of Google Drive links, but you know, those are kind of becoming, you got to be careful with Google Drive links of what you're giving people access to and what they can do with the information that you give them. So boards are a way that you can easily text a lot of information. So for instance, we're working on transitioning all of our listing documents, you know, in new construction, especially when they want to know the incentives, they want the floor plan, and agents are busy. We get it. Y'all are driving down the road and you're calling us, asking us questions about our new construction. But I can easily just go to that board, grab it and send it to you. And it's got elevation, the selections, the floor plan, the plat, the covenants, everything, anything pretty much we would have put in a book before, you can now do on a board, but there's less access to your Google stuff. So it's a little bit safer, I think. And anything you can think of, you can add to a board. So we're in the process of trying to change some of our stuff over just so it's easier for everybody to be able to send in a quick notice, because as we've seen, everything is moving so fast. So I'm glad you brought that up. We'll skip to another question. How do you consistently generate high quality leads while maintaining relationships with past clients? I say that laughingly because we've all failed in that area at some point in time.
Yeah, I think we all can agree our highest quality leads are our past clients and referrals. And consistently, I think a third of our business every year comes from them. And I just kind of preach as hard as I can, and I don't think it's anything you can absolutely teach. You just try to figure it out as you go. If you spend really quality time with your clients while they're with you, you gain their trust. You're their hero on some things. You point out things that need to be addressed that they weren't thinking of. And once you've earned the trust, I don't feel I have to do a whole lot past that I consistently, hey, you sold my house 10 years ago. I had like 3 of them this past week. You worked with me 12 years ago. You worked with me 7 years ago. And I don't send like 8 different touches or any of those things. They have a memorable, as we say in our team, a memorable positive experience. And it's really hard unless they marry a realtor or their daughter-in-law becomes one. It's really hard if they've had such a good experience with you not to come back. I was appalled a few years ago. I had lunch with my husband and a few of his work friends back when he used to have to work. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, we live in Apex and we bought a house a couple years ago. I was like, oh, who was your agent? I don't really know. I could not believe that. Like, you did not know who your agent was? And I think that just says the agent did nothing memorable.
Yeah.
So are they ever going to call that agent back if they couldn't even tell me what their name was? Like, that was shocking to me. So I think you've just really got to find a way. I don't know if it's your energy, your presence, your step by step, your tenacity, your solving problems, I think I've lacked the tooting of my own horn. Like, I get things done and I don't let them know it was a problem. So I've learned more now to like step up and say, hey, this problem came up. You never knew what happened. This is how I solved it. Because I just like them to be relaxed through the process. But when they do see a hurdle that you hurdle for them, then that's there too.
Well, I think what is the statistic, like 70-80% of first time buyers never work with the same agent again, and it's because they don't remember who they are. Who's been to an open house lately and somebody's working with a realtor and they can't tell you their name, or they can tell you their first name? I mean, we see it all the time. And now I'm just kind of like, oh, well, you know, we want to make sure, obviously with BBAs and everything else, that they're truly being represented. But it's amazing that if you're working on a transaction based style business, then you're going to be a transaction to people. But if you're working your business as the business that it is, it's like Sharon said, they're going to
that you form. Yeah.
What about you, Beth?
Ask me the question again.
You're good. How do you consistently generate high quality leads while maintaining relationships with past clients?
The past clients is huge. I think that's a large part of our business, but as far as new business comes in and the marketing that we're doing is speed to lead and then just trying to get them in front of us. Because whether we, if we can get them to talk to us and look at us, then we can generally, turn the leads pretty quickly, but high quality is like a lot of leads are coming through occasionally that's tough to decide.
Yeah, and I can say that Beth and I have worked on a lot of transactions together or around each other where it's kind of like, oh, I see that she has a past listing that she sold to somebody. Like, I think she does such a good job with the transaction that the people she sold it to, remember, she's the one that sold it to them. And so she's constantly working with a lot of the same clients, same transactions, or same properties, I should say, not transactions.
And we do a lot of follow up with our past clients. We stay in touch with them for sure.
And we will, well, while we're here, give us an idea of some of the ways that you stay in touch with your past clients that you have found to be successful.
Well, we do have them all entered and we kind of go through there and look at them. And at the end of the year, we always send them things. One of the things I noticed that you do is like the appreciation dinners and things like that. We would love to be able to do that and we just gotta find the time, but that's a great idea, I think, to be able to do that. We've been wanting to do that.
Well, it's a funny story because Beth and I worked in one of the same subdivisions. I'll never forget, like the first time I attempted pop buys, I'd gone to Lowe's and bought poinsettias. So it was right around Christmas. And I go to my client's house and I'm bringing them a poinsettia. And of course, they want to come in and chit chat and this, that, and the other. Beth and I worked in the same office at this time. And they're like, you tell Beth, we thank her so much for that magnet she sent us. And it's there, it is on her fridge. On their fridge. And I'm like, oh, shit, but that's not on your page. But I tell that all the time when I tell people, I'm like, don't get mad if you take somebody a pop by and they thank another agent for the gift that they sent them. But it proves that I was doing something one time, Beth was doing something consistently. Does that make sense?
The consistency, I think it's huge.
And that's something that I have struggled with over the years as I've grown and scaled is I realized I wasn't keeping up with people consistently. And so one of the reasons I started doing client appreciation events was a way to put it out there that if you can come to me, it's a little bit easier to get in front of more people. And so we'll expand on that probably in another 5, but I'm a big believer of client appreciation events. You got to prepare yourself for all the things that come, all the drama that comes with an event, weather and all the other things. But it is a great way to start small and it's something that you can scale as well. But the thing that doesn't work is not following up with them at all, because that's how other people end up with your clients. And we call them orphan clients. If the agent's not following up with them and staying in front of them, then they are going to end up working with somebody because you weren't memorable, unfortunately. And I wasn't taught that early on, Sharon, about having that memorable experience. I just assumed every experience with me was memorable. It was great, right? We close, they're happy, they're smiling, so it must be fine. But not staying consistently, following up with them was my fault. And I was fortunate that I was an early adopter of Facebook when I first started real estate. Facebook had kind of just come out, and so that was a way I made a point of saying what I thought was in front of everybody. But the other part was that I was being very engaging with them at the same time. And my team's probably sick of hearing me saying this, but I heard it last week and I just can't let it go. The problem with social media these days is we've gotten away from the social and we've gone to just media. We've made it all about us, putting our content out there, putting out what we're doing and how we're doing it and how many houses we sold and this property that we're showing today, but we're not doing the social part, which was engaging. And that's where I feel like I was really strong at the social media, is making sure I was staying in front of my people, but it was because I was engaging with them. I was asking them, how are your kids? I was sponsoring their sports teams. I was doing this, that, and the other. And it was as much about them, more about them than it was about me and just media.
Hey, real quick, something that spurred something in my mind and I remember hearing, as far as making sure, that your clients are gonna have a memorable experience, was ask for a review halfway through the transaction. That way, if the buyer is swallowing or the seller is swallowing something that you've done, they'll go ahead and tell you to fix it rather than after the fact and not consider using you again. It's staying ahead of that issue that you may not know even existed.
Well, or a feeling that you didn't know existed. That's a good
Exactly.
point. It's like
Exactly.
Sharon said, Tracy O'Dowd, most of y'all know her. She made a good point with one of her clients one time at the closing, was like, wow, they think our job is so easy because we do all the things behind the scenes. They don't know what we actually do. And she would say, you feel like this was easy, that my job is easy, that means I did my job. But at the same token, it makes them feel like maybe our value is not as strong as it is. And so it is important that we're overcoming the obstacles that happen. I mean, I know everybody in here probably at some point in time has had a deal ruined by a lender or a appraiser or a home inspector. Had nothing to do with us, but it completely tainted that relationship with you and your client. And I think it's about talking about those things and talking it out, because for the longest time, I didn't do a client appreciation event, because what do you always hear when you run into a client? Well, my roof started leaking. 7 years ago, I sold them this house, their roof started leaking. I still feel personally responsible for whatever reason. And you don't want to have those conversations. You don't want to have any of that some of the problems that pop up. But what that also keeps you from doing is celebrating all the great things that happen in these houses when they have a baby and they've got plenty of room, or when they're all the things. So I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I think it's important that if you are focusing on generating new leads, you are focusing just as hard, if not harder, on maintaining the relationships of the ones you had. And if you've ever heard me talk about starting a team, that's the number one mistake that I made. I thought because I started a team, I needed to buy all these leads, although I'd never paid for one myself. And when I did that, it made the agents I had on my teams and myself stop working nearly as hard on the relationships that we already had. And we were too focused on going out and finding all this new business. And the best clients you're ever going to work with are the ones that already know and love you and trust you. So, what strategies, can't wait to hear this, do you use to differentiate yourself in competitive markets? Especially since all three of us technically compete a lot.
Start with Beth on that one.
I'm looking at that.
So I will say billboards. I see you everywhere.
I do do a lot of billboards though. I don't want one of my answers, but that is true, I guess. I did radio ads in the past, and I kind of moved from there to billboards, but I like the billboards. The other thing I guess is Brandon with Remax. They're huge. They're in like 100 countries now, and that's huge. So I definitely leverage that. It's like an 800-pound gorilla sitting behind our team brand. So I just think leveraging the two together is important, and then proven track record, and just making sure whatever we're doing, we are advertising that experience and proven track record, I think is huge.
I would agree with that 100%. That is an advantage I feel like you have to a degree. Is everybody knows that brand, knows that name, where I feel like we work hard on making our brand and our names known. I would agree with that. And I love that you brought up billboards, actually, because that's one of the first pieces of advice I was given. And I'm not going to lie. It was our dear Marty Hampton. We went to dinner one night and I was like, what? And she had a list of 1 through 5. And the first thing was get a billboard. And I was like, is this 1980? Who has billboards anymore? And I thought, well, yeah, you can buy a billboard if you're Beth Hines or Marty Hampton, but I was just starting my team. I didn't know that was even a thing, but I was like, she says do it, I'll do it. And so I found the cheapest billboard I could find. And you would be surprised the amount of phone calls that I got. Literally, everybody's like, congratulations on your billboard. I'm like, I didn't win it in a paid for it, but my very first agent came from my billboard. And so I would agree with that. And I think Beth does a good job too with her calls to action, and just she has stayed consistent in her name and brand recognition since the day I've met her. So and I would say the same thing for you, but I do love the fact that you've kind of got your name and the Triangle Expert spin on it too. So I think that differentiates you a lot from what everybody else is doing, trying to build their own brands.
Yeah, I
Own name.
purposely made it a company name versus my name, because I knew there'd be a point in which, and I'm deep into that point of having a bunch of agents be able to, do what they need to do under the umbrella and not feel like, oh, everybody's just looking for Sharon Evans. I just do want them to be a part of something they're proud of, that they can be their own person in the team and not feel like oddly about that in some way.
Yeah.
When did you, obviously, when you were starting out, was this your goal? The end goal was to be, this big team leader?
No.
Was it just a busyness?
It's a consequence, yes.
It was a busyness thing?
It's
that
a
you're like, okay,
consequence of, I tell people, when you can no longer put another butt in your car and you have to start calling other agents because that weekend you already have 5 clients on a Saturday, boom, 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 boom. And my goal was to not be in the car on a Sunday after I had kids, if possible. Doesn't mean I don't leave this iPad from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. some of those Sundays, but that was my goal, was to be home if possible. It just became a need. I'd have to
Love it.
find an agent here or there in the office that I trusted to take some of those calls. And then you realize when you see people who built teams, well, now I've dead-ended that business because so much of my business always came back to me.
Mhm.
So I needed to find people who wanted to work in my world. And then I started to work with an agent or two in the market space that we crossed deals a couple of times. And I'd say, hey, do you need some more business? Yeah, I'd love some more business. Okay. Can you do your business and a little bit of my business and us form a team? And that's just how it all started. Mhm.
Cool.
Beth, what about you?
That's the question.
Yeah, so that one's the same thing, similar, except that my business got bigger and it was hard to give the best care possible to the clients and be able to have any free time. So I kind of started off with like some referral agents. Beth is one of them. I went on LinkedIn and put an ad out, and he was the first one that responded. He's been with me about 11 years. But and then we kept getting busier and busier. So then that's what made me decide to do a team.
Well, and you know, luckily teams have come full circle. I feel like, you know, when they started their teams, it was a completely different team demographic. It was not the way it is set up now. And I feel like they've done a really good job evolving. Like when I first started, I was like, I don't want to be on a team. It seemed like, you know, I'd come out of the military. I knew what that looked like. If somebody's in charge, you got peons below. It's kind of what it looked like and felt like. Not that y'all were running your teams that way, but there was a completely different structure. And I feel like it's evolved. And now what's happening is, y'all, we just can't do it all anymore. Like it's not fun. There's so much that we have to do and are responsible for that we never were before. And so it sounds terrible to say it becomes a necessity, but I think especially if your heart's in the right place, which both of yours are, you recognize that I'd rather do good business and help other people be successful than just have all the business and make it transactional and hope for the best. And we know agents in our market that are like that. They would just they just turn clients and turn transactions, and then they just keep moving, and that works for them. But I think you guys realized you had something of value. You work hard, you show up, you show people you work hard. You're not just trying to have people do the work that you don't want to do, which is why I felt like it was so important to have them on the panel. People who are actually still in production, that are still doing the work and not just, you know, sitting up on the hill being like, has everybody got this? You know, I think that makes a difference. So how do you leverage technology and automation to streamline client communications? Which I know is hard for all three of us because we're all still very hands-on. For me, I would say, let's see, I've got on here, which apps or platforms do you find most effective for managing tasks and communication? I'm still a big believer in email. I still live and die by my email. I'm a terrible texter, and I know that about myself. I would say figure out what works for you and do it at a high level. As far as that question goes, like I said, we all use different types of technology, and what works for one may not work for another. But I think it's important that you're always looking at the technology that's coming down, whether it's boards or AI or whatever they're throwing at us next, that we're making sure that whatever we're doing to communicate with our clients, we're being consistent in doing that over and over and over, so that clients aren't getting different results or.
Yeah, and I think if you got a lot of we get a lot of Google clicks and Zillow leads and different things that if you haven't been able to get a connection with them pretty quickly, we have like Ylopo that does, you know, some gripping on them to get them talking. But at some point, they ever raise their hand back up and you've just put some of them kind of to the side while you're attending what you've got to attend, then you still got to recognize, oh, they interacted. They asked a house about a question about a house. Like now I need to turn that off and engage them. So I do like that there are some tools now that kind of don't let them just fall down the conveyor belt when you just hope one day they'll raise their hand when they're ready, if you put them on MLS searches or something. But it kind of asks them some key questions that might get them talking.
Mhm.
And we just integrated, and it's a long integration path, open to close. And that open to close has a lot of what we call triggers. If X happens, then this email goes out. And if Y happens, then this email goes out. So it's helping our transactional people manage more because some things are just should happen next are happening next, which is pretty cool to see.
Well, and the biggest takeaway from that, I heard is if you're starting now, start some of this process now. Figure out for yourself in each transaction, if this, then that, and make a note of it. Whether you're putting it on a Google spreadsheet or you end up with this, what you don't want to happen is once your database gets to 5,000 or 8,000 people, then it's really hard to start over with a new process and a new system and put these things in place. So the biggest thing is I wish I'd have leveraged a lot of this a lot sooner as I was growing instead of waiting to feel like, well, when I get there, then I'll get this system or I'll do this or I'll buy that. Because then once you get there, you're like, well, I got to do what with all of these contacts and figure out where all these people are again. And then you feel crazy if you're like, hey, I know you reached out about 6 years ago. I was just checking to see if you're still in the market. Like at that point in time, it's just kind of awkward. So do yourself a favor. And as you're growing and as you're building, start trying to put some of these things in place now so that you're not playing catch up. Like I feel like, Beth, you're shaking your head. Like I think you have had to a degree, play catch up once you've gotten so big that now we need to have these things in place. And you don't have to have an assistant to do all this. Some of this could just be as simple as calendar alerts for yourself. Like, okay, this person goes under contract, so 3 days later we're going to check and do this, and create your own system and keep building on that. Same for you.
I think a good CRM will help you too. I think with a lot of that, just a lot of them you can research and figure out which one works best for you. Using it's important. I think the one that we use is not cost effective, but I like it because of good customer service and it has all the things on it, keeping up with people to-dos, and then plus you can see when they come back.
Well, it's one that if it's working, then its value is there regardless of how much it costs, to be honest. I mean, going with something that's the cheapest is not always best. You get what you pay for. And the same thing, if something costs a lot, but it's working, then it's worth it all day long. All right, I'm going to jump into this question. What are your go-to methods for managing stress and avoiding burnout while maintaining high productivity? And don't we wish somebody would have asked us this about 10 years ago? Like, what is that? Are there any? So one of my lead-in questions are what daily habits or routines help you stay grounded and focused? And if you followed me for any certain time, it's all about my morning routine. I have to give myself to me first. I can't pour into anybody else until I pour into me. So that meant I had to sacrifice some sleep, but getting up earlier and starting my day on my time instead of somebody else's is the best thing that you can do for yourself. Do not check your phone first thing in the morning. Which means that you have to get up earlier because people start texting now at 7 a.m. But the thing is don't check your social media, don't check your email, don't check your Facebook, do not do anything until you spend some time with yourself in your own mind and getting yourself grounded. That's the biggest piece of advice. I learned that from when I started my team. I'd gotten burnt out and I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I can't remember where I was, but I'd heard about the book, The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents. And I started following Hal Elrod. And that's the first time I'd ever heard about just creating this morning routine. And if you listen to any, inspirational, motivational speakers, whatever, coaches, they will tell you it's all about how they start their day. And everybody has a strong morning routine because if you wake up running around with hair on fire, guess what? That's how you're setting yourself up for the rest of the day. So that I wish I could tell you it was some magic hack, but that to me has been the biggest magic hack was reading that book. I since then bought it, I gave it to my entire team, and I highlighted in the book where I felt like this is what you need. But figure out what works for you in a morning routine so that you get to have some you time, because whether you're a team leader, whether you're in production, whether you're just a mom or a husband or whatever, people start grabbing at you as soon as you walk out of your bedroom. So find a place, a space that can be just about you and pouring into you, whatever that looks like. Mine starts in the Word and devotions, and I recommend that for everybody in the room. But find out what works for you and not email and social media. That was my soapbox. I'm getting out. What about you? How do y'all manage stress and burnout and all that? Do you have a morning routine?
I get up early. For years and years, I got up and went to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had a trainer. Last 3 years, it's been a little difficult because if everybody knows, my husband had 3 strokes, and he had heart surgery the 2 years prior to that. So the last 3 years has been a little tough for doing going to the gym, but I still get up early. And I do a lot of motivational, listen to podcasts. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Darren Hardy.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty good. He's free. So if you want to listen to that, I mean, he always has something interesting to say in the mornings. I enjoy that. But you're right. The morning routine's huge.
And I think I'm an exact opposite alien being. I just work late. I'm a late owl. I set something out at 1 a.m. last night just when I finally finished it. And I usually get up towards 7 o'clock and I hit feet with everything and anything's going on and reprioritize all day long. I have certainly found over the years that I get so busy, then I forget to eat lunch, and then I feel lightheaded or headachy by 2 or 3 and those things. So then I got to a point that I started actually scheduling 12 or 12:30 a lunch hour to force myself. But I think that's the thing, like figure out again what works for you and what things are important to you. And if working out in the morning, then put it on your calendar. If it's me just making sure I get a lunch break and like turn things off for a little bit, then that's what it is. But whatever it is somebody who was at my team meeting this morning was kind of saying like sometimes just taking an hour break and sharpening your axe, you could cut. He was making this whole cutting lumber all day analogy. He said, 2 people are cutting lumber all day and one takes the hour break and comes back. Yet by the end of the day, they keep cutting more lumber. And they finally said, like, what was it? And they said, oh, for that hour, I go home and sharpen my axe. So kind of that analogy, like find it what it is for you. Some people it's yoga, or yoga crazy, or it's pickleball, or pickleball crazy, but something that's for you, that's important to you, because it is an all consuming situation a lot of times, and you can't stop. As my husband has reminded me, he didn't marry a realtor in his mind. We went to engineering school together. He thought, oh, to marry a teacher or a nurse, it's just what he envisioned in life. And this is where life took us. Yeah. So, but he, the resentment in a relationship can come up because what's on the other end, and this is totally off what you're asked,
Keep
but
going, because everybody in here's living it.
it's what's on the other end of that phone is more important. And I've heard that for 28 years now. But the acceptance of what it is that, yes, we have deadlines and urgency. A 5 o'clock due diligence that gets a call at 4:15 is about to blow up. You have to stop. I don't care what's on your calendar or what your husband thought you were doing. And I think that's just so important for you and your significant others, your whole family, to recognize that your job just doesn't turn off when you want it to turn off. And someone can call you at 9 o'clock at night and their house be flooding and they're closing in 2 days. And it's not like you can just show no empathy and not urgency, like if it's your own. And I think that's the thing. Like I always treat everything almost as if it's my own. And when I speak to people, I was speaking to people about very strange last night. If this was my property, this is what I would do. Let me tell you why. Because they can feel I'm internalizing it, how much I care about for them. So anyway.
That's why your clients have such the experience.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping it's making everybody here feel normal, because it's 100% normal to feel burnout. And I say work-life balance is a farce. It does not exist, especially if you're in real estate. We have work-life integration. And so, my kid's sitting in here, she hates when I call her out, but she'll tell you that there was a lot of Saturdays that I was working. I was doing a lot of open houses. I was, working at night, this, that, and the other, but never missed anything at school. She would never rode the bus. That to me is work-life integration. I might be on the phone the whole way to the bus, to the school. And I was like, all right, babe, have a good day. And I get back on the phone and she makes a joke that she spent her life with me doing this. But we never missed anything, and as she got older and what she wanted to do led to travel, we were able to afford to do it. I was able to take off and do it. If I worked a 9 to 5, there's no way I could have taken her to Nashville every month. You know what I mean? But we were able to do that because I had work-life integration. And so that is what I would tell you, quit striving for this perfection of work-life balance. So I'm going to turn it off at this time. Okay. Well, let me know how that goes when your client calls and their house is flooding and they're closing in 2 days. And you need to move heaven and earth to figure this out for them, because we are dealing with people's emotions, their huge investments, their stresses. We carry that for them. And that's why it's so important that you are making time for yourself. And so You won't ever hear me say you need to be in the office from 8 to 5, because that's not where the money is being made in this office from 8 to 5. It's being made while you're out belly to belly with clients. And so I tell you all the time, when you're getting your nails done and your hair done, it better be during regular working hours, because we don't have regular working hours. We don't have the luxury of every Saturday being free to do whatever we want to do, because that's when a lot of people other do now. Luckily, COVID's changed that and people work from home more. So schedules are a lot more flexible than we used to be, but it doesn't mean that we don't need to set up time for ourselves. And like you said, sharpening your axe. I just finished the 12-week year, and they talk about having strategic blocks. And so you're supposed to have 3 hours a week where you're doing something for yourself during work hours, so that you feel like it's a fair balance when you're doing stuff outside of work hours. And then you're supposed to have 3 hours a week that you spend on moving your boss forward, sharpening your axe, personal development. I promise you, nobody told us to get on all these calls and read self-help books and personal development. It wasn't until we started pouring into other people and we were depleted that we realized that we had to start doing that for ourselves. So everybody thinks most people start a team because they can't wait to just lead other people. Nope. It, as you just heard, it all started because we got busy. We needed other people to come be busy with us. But now it's evolved into now we're pouring into others. So we have to be able to continue to fill our cups, and like things happen, and we have to be able to have other people to depend on. And that's why I feel like, as you've already seen in the market, everything, so much is shifting towards so many big teams, or at least being in companies and organizations where you have people that you can lean on and depend on.
And I think that's a lot because of strengths, right? And I didn't really see that. I thought, oh, I could just do it all and juggle all the balls and juggle all the balls. And then you get the confidence in, oh, someone can be a listing manager and juggle some of those balls consistently. And oh, now they're too busy to do listings and closings. So now you need to split that so that two people are doing it. And even when I hire experienced agents to the team, like they have a little bit of like, oh, I can let go of that. But if you're really a good agent, you really will make the most money. It's said over and over again by every big team leader. I've heard it so many times. If you're the top agent on a top team, you will most of the time make more money than the team owner. And it's because everything's being paid for you. And even though you've got to split because things cost money, you're using your time as your highest dollar per hour. And there's just no way to get around that. Like if all you can do is interact with the client, negotiate, get it under contract, give it to people who are very skilled at what they do, who only have to call you if there's a crisis, and you can move on to the next one and move on to the next one. It's not bogging you down in just these daily things. That's where people are really some of the best financially I've seen. And I've kind of like, oh yeah, I need to reincarnate and go back and find that team that just wants me to just do that stuff. But I've built it for so long and this is where I'm at now. But you just see the evolution of teams and why it works is really good agents don't do paperwork, right? Don't need to be chasing around putting up signs and hoping the photographer shows up and see if the stager will do this or do that. And once I'm at Home Depot buying light fixtures and everything, I'm like, what am I doing? This is crazy. Somebody needs to be leveraged out to do these things once you kind of see the value of your time.
100%. Anything to expand on that? Okay, I love this question. How do you handle difficult clients or transactions while protecting your reputation and maintaining professionalism? Well, you can cheat because your husband's an attorney, in my opinion. You have that edge. I call Sharon all the time. I'm like, what would Jay do in this situation? Because I've got this. And sometimes our clients ask us to be unethical and illegal. And so I think it's hard to tell them no when we know we have their best interest at heart, but their best interest is also not getting them wrapped up in a lawsuit. But that's not what they want to hear, let's be honest. Or the things that need to be done when somebody doesn't want to do it, or pricing where they don't want to price it. So what are some ways, because we've all had those difficult clients, what are some ways that you feel like you overcome and kind of stand your ground while also staying professional?
I think it's a plus and a minus for me. I'm very direct and I'm kind of bossy. So when I go in to say a listing appointment, they're they kind of get the sense throughout the like what I'm presenting, that you're kind of do it my way, or there's really no reason to hire me. We're just going to butt heads, right? And so most of the time I avoid that. That person just doesn't hire me. And then I have to reflect on that. It was probably a blessing, right? And I definitely follow up. Sometimes it's somebody gave them a better commission, so I didn't prove my value enough, whatever. So you want to reflect on those things. But I mean, I just, thank goodness, for years and years haven't had that. I certainly years ago felt like I just ended up with that person here or there, maybe one or two a year, that just kept wanting to like tell me, well, you're not doing this enough, or I think you need to do this open house. Or I'm like, that's not what I presented to you. That I don't change the script on me. I told you what I was going to supply. So I think we all are people pleasers though too, and we want them to be happy with us. So sometimes we may bend or something, but I don't know. I think because I come in with, this is my plan, this is what's works, this is how it's going to happen. They can see, what you're doing, and then they don't question it. But I think when you're newer, you've got to feel your way through all those things. But you really should set all the right expectations up front. And then it's lesser that you're going to get that kind of like gridlock with someone.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Just being honest with them up front and direct and telling them like it is. And that's kind of the way I've always done it as well. And generally most people don't hire you if they don't like what you tell them up front.
Yeah.
But that you do run into problems sometimes because we're not perfect, that you drop the ball occasionally, or at least we've had a couple of times. We don't like bad reviews. Everybody knows I hate a bad review. And so I try to call them and I talk to them. If there's ever a problem, I try to call them direct because it could be something that fell through the cracks. So just definitely call them direct. Usually most people are very considerate. There are those that aren't. Well, I just had one in Raleigh recently that we sold their house and we got $25,000 more than asking price. And I knew when I got there to list the house, another agent on the team went with me. And I got there to list the house and she come out the door and shuts the door and we don't get to go in until she sees us outside, which was a little unusual, I thought. But anyway, we come on in and we ended up getting the listing and telling her, what we thought. Everybody else priced the house that she interviewed was a little lesser, I guess. But the house wasn't ready for when we went to do the pictures. We went over everything. And when we got there, the pictures weren't ready. So we were in there moving stuff around, getting it ready for pictures and everything. So all that worked out good and we got offers and multiple offers and all that. But then she moves out before the house is finished. So I knew we better go check that house before we send the people back for their final walkthrough, because if it's like it was when we went to do the pictures, it probably wasn't good. She wasn't paying for a cleaner. So I did break down and pay for the cleaner on that one, but just to save the day on that, because she was going to be difficult, we could tell. So but that's rare, very rare.
And I tend to be too much of a people pleaser. I know that about myself. I'm that's something honestly I'm working on, and I learned from them a lot. I've been in behind when they've got listings and I haven't, and that was one of the things that they were very upfront. And the other thing is they were very confident in their data. And so I think, I tell my team all the time, if you come in with numbers and data, nobody can argue with that. So as much as I'd love to say, I feel like your house is, and I feel like we should do this, I think you guys y'all do a really good job arming yourself with exactly what you expect to happen. And I'm going to segue into staging for a second because you just said that. But before I do, I don't want to forget this fault, because you said something when something happens, do not stick your head in the sand. Make the phone call, hit it head on. I hate confrontation probably more than anybody in this room. It drives me insane to just have a little bit of somebody doesn't like me. Thank gosh for the book, let them. But anyway, it is not fun. There's no part of it is, but it's the best thing that you could do. And I use to exactly what you said. I had a experience with Lori Travers, had my eyes done. It was a terrible experience from start to finish. I was in pain. It was agonizing. It was an awful experience. The very next day, Lori Travers called me herself onto my cell phone. And from then on, I still tell people, like, I still would use her. I got to go back and get a touch up. I'm going back. It was a bad experience. It's not her fault. But the way she handled it and called me on my cell phone the next day and said, I just want to make sure you're okay. If you need to come in, if you need anything, like, it completely changed my attitude and impression of the whole thing, because I knew other people had different experiences than me. They had good experiences. I knew mine was a one-off, but it took her calling me and making me feel like she cared. That's half the time when they're not calling to fight with you. They just need to know that you care about what they feel and why they think the way they do. And 9 times out of 10, that smooths things over. But the worst thing you could do, please, as the agent on another side of a transaction, when something goes wrong, don't stick your head in the sand. That is the worst thing you can do in any situation, is acting like it's just going to go away, because it's not. All it's going to do is fester and get worse for everybody else. But real quick, because both of y'all do some sort of staging. So talk to everybody a little bit about that, because it's not something that I am strong in, and I know that about myself, and I'm honest. I mean, I staged one house and it was a mobile home and I left everything in it. I hated everything about staging. It is not my jam. I was just trying to do accessory staging. But I'm one of those that overthink that type of thing. And so, Beth, I know you do a lot of kind of light staging, accessory staging. You do full blown staging. So talk a little bit about that, because I feel like staging was something that we talked about forever. I've lost listing appointments over not just offering staging. I didn't even know it until I called after the fact to find out why. I thought the house looked great, but guess what they were hearing from HGTV? Staging, 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 staging. And when I called, she was like, well, you were the local photographer, but this other agent, was going to do some light staging. And I was like, and that was the reason they chose Christina over me. Christina learned that from Sharon. So anyway, talk a little bit about the why behind it and how you facilitate all that.
Mine grew kind of like everything. It grew from me recognizing someone needed paint, someone needed a few light fixtures, someone needed their bathrooms caulked, they needed a deep clean, they need the carpet cleaned, whatever. So I, at the beginning, would just make all the lists and organize all the vendors and knock it all out, because I know people cannot stand to be chasing vendors around and hope they show up and hope they actually get the work done. So I was very controlled on all of that, and they'd agree to the prices and we just get it done. And then several years ago, I got the point that I made that a position in my office. So at this point, we call out an a la carte girl, and she's pressed for years. She goes out and makes what we call a personal list. Get rid of your stuff off your fridge, clear your countertops, move this out of the room, it's too crowded. She gives them their weekend warrior, hopefully, stuff to do about the next day. And then she sends us a report of anything and everything that's visually cosmetic needs to be done. And then we just send the next few days, all of our contractors who work for us years and years and years, and they know how to work with each other. And we get all the quotes, and then we prioritize for them how to invest the right amount of money for the right amount of return. There's not a house I can think of, even how good or bad or ugly it is, that we don't do this process. And even in COVID, yeah, you could sell a house. Yeah, you get multiple offers, but I guarantee you, if you do our process, you're going to get 100 over, not just asking price after someone finally goes, okay, I can't find any. So I still believed in it. It always amplified what the seller would get versus the investment. So that's been my strong suit for a long, long time. Did you ask me the other day, you're like, how many listens do you lose? I'm like, once I get them, 0. But
Never. That's not one of
they're
our listings
set
not
up
sold.
visually and price wise to sell.
So we calculate at the end of the year, like we pride ourselves on having a low percentage of listings that don't sell. And so I thought I was kind of proud of mine. So I called, just in conversation, I was like, Sharon, what is an average I should be shooting for? She's like, I don't know, mine's 0. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe I'm still looking at
Like
staging,
year after year, I might have like one who we decide together the market and the numbers, like especially 08, 9, 10 or whatever, right? But I would have year after year, we wouldn't lose any, but it might just be that we make a decision together. It's best for them to keep the house and rent it. Or my father just died. We're going to take a break for a while, and then they'll regroup with me, once all that dust has settled, and then we sell it. But
never it expires after 6 months or a year and somebody else picks it up.
I freak out after 60 days. So no, it's not, no.
What about you when you're staging?
Well, we have, I have a garage full of stuff.
Oh,
So we
we
have-
actually storage buildings, and our stager uses the light staging stuff.
Yeah, so we do a lot of light staging, and we have checklists that we send out to each seller to get these things ready. And a lot of time, either myself or one of the agents on the team actually do like FaceTimes with them to make sure it's ready before we go to do the pictures and everything. But then we do have stagers that we can hire on the side if we need big staging and things like that. We don't have anybody else. That's amazing that you can do all of those special things, the painting and everything. That's really huge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that it's one of those things like, you structure that, if you're not Sharon Evans level, having that. And again, I just know it's not a strong point of mine, but I can leverage other people that it is. So I had a listing coming up, and the person they had bought it from, like, they were giving me the whole spiel in the listing presentation. It was fully furnished and all this. And they're like, what do we do now that we're getting ready to sell it? And it's got all the stuff in it. And I said, I'm going to bring my stager and we're going to put our eyes on it and we're going to tell you exactly what needs to be done. And that was like a weight of relief off of them, because you think of overwhelm. If anybody's moved recently, there's nothing we can do to take the overwhelm away of the packing and there's so much to figure out. They're already trying to figure out so much. The last thing they care about is, does this picture look right here? Is this too much? Should we do this? Do you need? And it makes, you guys have been in homes that are staged and not staged. You've been in homes where you could tell somebody didn't even tell them to take tacky pictures and deer heads and stuff like that down off the walls. And you're like, it shows different, the value of it feels different. And so even if you don't have the means to stage, I think just having that as a piece, don't ever just be like, oh no, it's fine. I mean, especially if they're willing to pay a stager, or if you have somebody that can just just give them a list. They just need to feel like they have a starting point, and instead of just leaving them with nothing, I think makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's 150 or 250, somewhere in that range, just to get the list and bring them a stager. And if they follow it, it's going to sell and they're gonna be happy and refer more. I mean, that's the best investment over any other advertisement expenses you could invest.
Like, we only have a few minutes left. I'm gonna skip my questions and see if there's any in the audience. Does anybody else have a question for anybody up here? Yes, Jen?
Okay, for any of you, and I'll probably ask you two more just because I'm around April every day. But once you get into work, like how, like, did you have a routine when you first started out? Like, okay, I make calls then, and then I follow up, and then I go on a point, whatever it is. Like, did you kind of have a routine? And has that routine changed a lot or just a little bit now that you're a team leader and you have people who do functions for you?
I never had that kind of structure,
Okay.
just to be honest.
Okay.
I think it's the reason I sold 265 homes one year.
Yeah.
Is I had no structure and I was just crazy. Right. But I do believe in it, and I do get my agents to spend quadrants, like, hey, spend this much time on prospecting for new business and tending to the old leads in your CRM. Spend this much time on the business you've got at hand that needs you to talk to them about the home inspection and this and that. And then spend this much time on past client business and touching base with them and ask them how their move went last month if they need anything. And I do teach people that, because I think it's just a different animal now of what people can handle. And I know people aren't going to be workaholics like me. And for them to have that steady business, I think if they create that, and then, I mean, clearly our days, though, it's going to change sometimes based on urgency.
Right.
Right. But if you at least have a goal, then more often than not, you probably hit those goals of how you structure your day.
Yeah, as a younger agent, I can say about the same thing. I really didn't have a structure. I just was running as fast as I could go. I feel like if you do what you say you're going to do and you follow up with the customer, you're going to stay busier than you could ever stay. I remember there's days when I first started, I had 6 different clients in my car. We don't drive them around in the car anymore. But just that's an example, or just like sitting down watching a movie. I was thinking about this when I was reading these questions. I can remember it, like one year I was watching a movie and the phone rang, and it was like getting to the good part, but I answered it. And they were sitting out in front of the house, and I thought what I was doing. I put everything down and I went and I sold that house. So that's just, it is kind of like, I love what work. So it's kind of hard to structure
High
that.
level accountability and
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I wish I could tell you there's a perfect structure, but one thing you'll see and hear from all of us is we work all day, every day. And if the worst part about real estate is they're like, oh, it's a flexible schedule. If by flexible, you mean I do everything I can just about all the time, that's flexibility. But it's like Dave Ramsey says, we live like no other so we can live like no other. I mean, we do have, we jump through hoops of fire and we do as much as we can, as fast as we can, but at the same time, it gives us the freedom to be able to take off for a week if we want to. It gives us the freedom to run our own teams and run our own business because we are willing to show up all day, every day. So, when you're in the process of building your business, if you're not treating this like a full-time job, you're doing it wrong. You're never going to be a top producer if you're not treating this like a full-time job. This is not something you can just sweep in and sweep out and really expect to do at a high level. And that's just the God's honest truth.
But I can say now that having a team is when we have the best one ever, I think, as far as admin and just the agents, and they're all, honest and I definitely can find myself more time now. I'm not out every weekend doing open houses before, that I can trust that they're going to do what they're supposed to do and I don't have to worry. And that's amazing feeling to have. Just knowing that you have the right people working with you and working for you, basically.
Well, and I think it all goes back to intention. We all three said it was not, we never thought, I remember being like, I'm not trying to be as big as Beth Hines or Sharon Evans and I'm not trying to have all those people, looking up to me. But then you get busy enough to where you're like, I do want to do this. I do want to surround myself with other people who want to do real estate at a high level and let's have fun and do it together. And so it becomes worth it. You don't start out thinking like, I think none of us came from we just want to make as much money as possible. We came from how many people can we help? How many people can we work with? How many people can we impact? And that just grows to reflect to agents too. How many people can we impact? How many people can we help with their businesses? And so I think the intention behind why you're doing it and what you're doing makes all the difference. What other questions? Are there any online?
I saw one.
One of them came up.
Anybody else have any?
You have a million more.
Our new part-time realtor trying to get clients.
There you go.
You got it, Pete.
Okay. Open houses.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yep.
Yeah, they're huge right now. Yes.
Mhm.
I started my business doing open houses for Beth, and I would tell people I would do 2 a day. I'd go, she had new construction, I did, and I'd go from 11 to 1, I'd close up and I'd go to the next one from 12 to 2.
They've done
And
3 or 4 in a day.
Wow.
as much as you can get in front of people is never going to be a bad thing. And I think, it's hard when you are trying to do it part-time. But it can be done. And I think it's one of those where you have to keep it top of mind and you have to treat it like a full-time job, whether you have the time to or not.
Yeah. I don't want to have a limiting belief because I know somebody can pull it off, but every time I've interviewed people to start on the team, I just don't know how you could meet somebody, start to show them some property, and then something come up that they need and you're at another job. If you don't have the flexibility to leave that job and a house just hit the market and it needs multiple offers answered in the next 2 hours, unless you've got a really good partner at your real estate company who's willing to go be your showing agent right then but still you got to break away from the job to talk to them intensely, do the comps, like give them advice, talk to the listing agent. So I just think it's really, really tough. And I've had people that went away for a year and came back and said, all right, I've resolved myself. I quit the job. I'm all in. And I do think it takes that to see true income and success start coming, because the one time you cannot be there, the house is going to be available for them, or they're going to be at that new construction signing up and needing you over there, or it's getting signed up without you. Like it happens. It happens.
I would agree with that. The biggest attrition we've had on our team is when I broke my own rule and I hired some part-time agents. And what I found is, unfortunately, if they know that they're gonna, if you're doing it part-time, you gotta have a very flexible job. It can't be every night, this, that, and the other, because what I found, even though I felt like this person did have a flexible job, is if they can go in and do, I'm just gonna use a hairstylist as an example, because we have all these salons next door, but if they can go in and do a hairdo for $150, that's going to turn their attention a lot faster than sitting here and doing prospecting for 5 hours. That may result in $10,000 6 months from now, but that is 6 months from now. That 150 is instant gratification.
Right.
that is why it's so hard for agents that are not doing this full time. And I get it. We had to save that's how Brian started a landscaping business. He started cutting grass on the weekends so that we could save up enough money for me to go full time when I went on my own for the first time. Cause I did, I went a solid 6.5 months without my first paycheck. And when you have your free time, every moment has to be dedicated to trying to build your business in some sort of way. So even if I had nothing going on, I'll tell you, I signed up for every floor duty, every phone duty, every open house that there was, because I was going to talk to somebody who was going to buy or sell real estate at some point in time. And I had to make that my focus. Because I didn't believe in myself at first. I signed up to be a substitute teacher thinking, okay, well, I'll have that to fall back on the days I don't make any money. I was so committed, whether I sold anything or not, I never substitute taught one day. So, all right. Well, thank y'all so much for your time and your brains and your expertise and your hearts and all the things that you are. I think the biggest thing I love is, not just what they pour into their businesses, what they pour into others, what they pour into their community. So I really appreciate y'all taking time to pour into us.
Yes, thank you.
We only minute we have questions, so I think we have to do this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got like
Thank you
five.
so much.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
What other questions you got? Just say them.
Well, okay. It was me. Okay, hang on. Where did I write it? Okay, for you, how do you talk to your buyers about paying for the vendors? Like, do you run, sellers, yeah.
Okay.
Do you run into people who are like, we don't have that kind of money to put into the house to get it, they don't have money to get it painted. They've just got to get it sold.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
how do you do that?
it's so interesting because I just think there's a will, there's a way.
Uh-huh.
And there's another group that's right around the corner from us that we at times, especially when we mostly did Leesville Road so much, competed a lot, and they would do even more than we would do. And we thought we did a lot. But he would always tell people on his team, like, I've never seen somebody, once I've presented them
Mhm.
with what need to happen to get a result of X in, Y out, that they didn't go borrow it from a family member.
Okay.
They didn't go figure out how to get an equity line. They didn't figure it out.
Mhm.
Like they just do. I mean, now COVID times, because prices went up so much, maybe people are easier to walk away from profit. And that's why they'll sell to Open Door through Mark
Yeah.
Spain and all these things, when they used to worry about every 0.5% commission we wanted for all that we did. But I just have not, it's a part of my listing presentation.
Okay.
This is what we do. This is visually what the result has been. You called me because I sold your neighbor's house. I've got one right now that's in the works.
Mhm.
The neighbor said, I've worked with her 3 times. This is what she does. She comes in, she paints our house. She changes the light fixture. She takes care of the bad lock on the front door. And I need someone while I go do, he's some land developer in Durham, while I do my thing and I'm good at it. She does her thing and she's good at it. And then the house sells, in back then 12 days. And it was a horrific house to sell,
Oh,
but
wow.
it sells in 12 days,
Mhm.
and when a house has issues, like I just tell people, imagine if you've got a highway, a steep driveway, power lines, you've got these issues. And then we take on a house that also the interior looks like crap
Mhm.
and it didn't sell. And you have to gently tell the seller, well, what did you offer them? Like,
Mhm.
what could they get excited about? They got to get excited about the inside. That's where
Okay.
people's decisions are made.
Mhm.
People have an intangible piece of real estate that it's not just going to trade like a piece of stock. Like it's going to be this price because Zillow says it is, or X price per square foot because my neighbor sold 2 months ago at that. It's the feeling someone gets when they walk in. And when you explain that to them, especially most women in the room,
Yeah.
they'll get it.
Okay.
You may have to turn to a man and said, have you ever sold a car and not polished it up?
Mhm.
Right? Did you just leave it dirty?
Mhm. Like that.
Did you not prep it because you knew you'd get more money? And they can get on board, right?
Mhm.
And I think because it's what I've done for so long and I have such a track history for it, that I bring that to the table consistently. But the majority of my people spend $10,000 to $20,000 making their houses. Right.
And well, keep in mind, she works in different prices, y'all. She's in
true.
Rock.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're talking.
I'm saying, us in Johnson County, we can dial that down just
I
a
mean,
little.
Yeah.
500 to 900, and in my multi-million
Right.
dollar people that I usually have to invest that kind of money.
Uh-huh.
It's the 1990, I got one right now, 1999 house. $30,000 we're putting into that house because it still looks.
Mhm.
1999.
Yeah,
It needed
yeah.
painted cabinets, it needed countertops, it needs walls painted that are still all yellow. Y'all, yellow is gone.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see yellow no more. You don't want to see brown cabinets anymore.
Mhm.
They needed new carpet. They had the diamond shaped Berber carpet all over the house, you know. They have French doors on the back that are rotten out.
Mhm.
Like it just needs it.
Mhm.
And when I presented it, he's like, of all the agents I've talked to, and he saw my brochures and what I did, he's like, this is what I need.
Mhm.
And you'll do this for me. And then I don't know, we've been on it 7 days. His
Mhm.
quartz counters are already in, cabinets and walls are already painted. He sees where it's going. He's excited, you know.
And I think three things to add to that. You can tell she's got resolve in what she's saying.
Mhm.
I mean, she's making you believe that you
Yeah.
need to redo your house right now, whether you thought you needed to or not.
Yeah.
So she's making them believe because she knows it works, and so she's very confident in what she's saying. And not only that, but she's bringing them the data to say this house sold X ever amount. This house. She can show them that how what she has given the advice of has paid them back. And so I think part of it is, do you want to be the nickel holding up a dime? If I was handing you a dime over here, it was going to take a little time, effort, and energy. Would you rather have a nickel? If so, why did you call me instead of just giving your equity away to Open Door when I'm telling you I can improve your equity? And so I think, her process does that and helps them understand, getting them back in their mind. Like if you walked into this house, would you buy it like it is?
Yeah.
And putting it back on them, letting it be their answer and their reasoning as to why they won't. Now, I went on a listing appointment yesterday and they're like, we're selling it as is, whereas. I was like, it's fine.
Yep.
It's older. We're going to get it pre-inspected so we know what we're working with. You're sitting on the side of 540. I get it. It would have to be an entire overhaul and this house is still going to be sitting on the side of 540. We're going to leave it as is. But if it was a nice house in a nice neighborhood, you give them the option to, so you're telling me you want to leave money on the table.
Mhm.
Do you want the new buyers to have everything that you've always wanted and the equity, or do you want to just
Yeah.
get the equity?
Mhm.
Pre-COVID, I could tell people, most likely if I put 10 to 12 in, I'm gonna get you 30 more
Mhm.
on just an average house.
Mhm.
Can you get that in 30 to 60 days anywhere? That kind of
Mhm.
return on your investment?
Mhm.
And no, you can't go buy a CD, get that money out. I
Mhm.
wish I was California, I could put 100 in and get 500 out, but we're not. We're North Carolina. So
Mhm.
if I can give you that kind of return, will that work for you?
Mhm.
You know,
Charge extra for that.
I charge them 6% and nobody questions it.
You're gonna grow up.
Mhm.
Well, no, again, I think it's important that she is very proactive and prepares them for that up front. So it's not the awkward conversation in the end of, okay, now I've given you my pricing and now da da da. When she's having that conversation in the beginning, she is preparing them for the end of the conversation to be, so how much money do we have to work with for improvements? Am I right? You're proactively
They
preparing.
usually like to ask me, what do you think it's gonna cost us?
Well, yeah.
You know, and I try to give them ranges, but I tell them I've learned a long time ago. My painter Eddie's worked for me 22 years. If I told him I think it's gonna be 3,000, damn if he's not 3,500, or I said 3,000, damn if it ain't 2,500. So I said, look, he'll be here in 2 days and quote it all. You don't have to do anything. This is all free.
Mhm.
It's information that we will work together and come up with a budget and an outcome. And when this couple recently divorced and said we got 20 grand, but I quoted it out and we could not remove enough to get it past 30 grand. They agreed to 30 grand
Mhm.
because it's going to make that much of a difference. Like after you've done this great work, you're going to leave the shitty carpet, you know? I mean, that's just where it comes down to.
Mhm.
It costs what it costs, but I got good prices
Mhm.
and it's efficient. It's not months. It's 2 to 3 weeks and I flipped your house.
And I think she took the overwhelm of trying to coordinate all that away from them too.
Amen.
So then it feels like the easy button, for
It
lack of a
is.
better word. It may not be the cheap button, but it's the easy button.
Mhm.
But it's much cheaper. I just had somebody, it's over the limit, so I shouldn't say it, but, because you're not supposed to go over 40 grand without a permit, but my main guy, he is
Good doing
a,
accounting.
he is a renovation, he's licensed renovator, so he can get permits. But if you go over that amount, but I've asked around, I mean, all you're doing is paint and carpet, like we're not structurally countertops, appliances, we're not structurally changing anything. But we, for fun's sake, took this house, 4,000 square feet. I projected it be worth 900 when we got done, and they had as is offers for 650. So it was 1988 inside. We took that house and we flipped it. It's about to close actually on Friday. And Curbio came out. 200 And $60,000 they quoted them to renovate their house.
So Kirby was a program that'll essentially grant you the money to do the renovations
Yeah.
and you
Where-
can pay them back.
I laid out about 60 grand worth,
Uh-huh.
that would raise their house 250 grand.
Wow.
And that's some serious cash.
Uh-huh.
They had to write some separate checks that I didn't have my name on,
Right.
but so that kept the numbers. But I'm just saying, like, it's important to show people. And they went with that mindset. We're gonna talk to investors, and we're gonna talk to rehabbers, and we're gonna talk to how can we get the most out of this family house we've owned since we made it.
Any more questions?
I do, but I mean, I don't know
Yep.
time wise.
Nobody's getting up, so I mean.
Okay. So, my next question was, when you started your team, okay, it sounds like first you kind of started working with other realtors to kind of help you out. But at what point, like, in April, I see you every day, okay? You've got Holly, you've got Kelly, you've got Colleen, you've got Nicole, and they're like running everything for you. So like, and I know you guys have people as well. At what point did you feel like, okay, I can actually hire somebody to actually do this? And you weren't scared, like, oh my God, am I going to be able to pay them?
That fear never goes away.
Yeah.
That keeps us up at night, for the record.
Yeah.
I can attest for all of us, we hired admin way too late. We hired admin once we felt like we were losing our minds, and then had somebody help us. And so going back to what they were saying, we were not spending our highest and best use of time doing things that were going to increase our sales and increase our profit. We were spending time doing paperwork instead and marketing and everything else, which everybody says marketing should be the last thing that you let go of. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But we were spending time doing non-income producing activities. And so it's as long as you're willing to spend your time doing non-income producing activities versus the things that are high income producing,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I always took the mindset too, like once I got my head around it, because I mean, I think once I knew that consistently I could get at least 10 closings a month, and that's too much for most people,
Mhm.
but I could totally handle that, right? That's just my bandwidth. But once I was consistently, because I had no salespeople or commission-based people in my whole family, and it's scary
Mhm.
to go from making a check to can I do this forever? Will it really sustain? Then I could justify, okay, at the time, let's just say you could make $300,000. Could I justify 50 or 60 or 45 back in the day or whatever to pay someone to do a bunch of this and then make a list of things that they could do for me? And you just, oh yeah, I think I could justify that. But it's scary because I take responsibility for that person's livelihood, and I certainly don't want to hit some kind of run of stuff not happening. But I think you get that confidence, like as long as I'm showing up at work and it's happening. I'm answering my phone. I'm getting back to people, and it's happening. So that's where I finally built the confidence
Mhm.
to hire.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you get busier, you find.
You do,
Yeah.
And then that person's about to quit because you put too much on them. And then you go, oh, okay, I'll hire another one and we'll split it all up. Like that's where it wasn't like with intention and purpose. I think every time I overloaded to a point because you just didn't want it to be seasonal,
Mhm.
then you realize, okay, now I can afford another person. And oh my
Right.
gosh, now I'm even busier. Like
Wow.
it made space in your day to do more.
Okay.
And the best advice Sharon ever gave me, and I didn't listen to, and I should have, is you don't hire another agent to be your admin and an agent, because
Yeah.
when one gets busy, one falls, and and vice versa happens. And they're always also going to chase a sale if you don't have the right person and they're just doing it to kind of take some of that weight off.
Part-time job.
Yeah, if it's their part-time
Right.
job, they're going to chase the sale before they chase your paperwork, unfortunately. So the first hire is always the hardest, without a doubt, because you never feel ready. But I would say as soon as you have some consistency in your business and you know that my time is better spent with clients than it is with paperwork. And if anybody knows me, my time is not good spent with paperwork at all. Then you need to just keep moving in that direction. And you have to dig that much harder and work that much harder in that direction to make sure you can continuously afford it. But like they said, once you do it, it frees you up to then really run.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're kind of running with one arm tied behind your back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then someone told me one time too, like, don't have so much fear that if you gave somebody a job and 9 months later you had to let them go because the world crashed and, you
Mhm.
know, I always tell people we could go to war with Russia and the whole world could crash and things wouldn't be moving and it is what it is. But just know that they probably enjoyed and learned a lot from you during that time and you
Mhm.
gave them a good job. And so you just kind of don't live with that guilt on you. And I try not to do that
Mhm.
anymore, worry about that.
Good.
Okay, I'm gonna let y'all go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
y'all.
good.
Get a picture of the three of us. If you remember Ernie?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, he ended up building a house on our family farm. After you sold his house, they moved to Beach. And then he got something wrong with his lungs and went to a home. No way. Yeah.
Mm.
And then my cousin ended up moving to house.
Right here in the success.
They put it on for a question.
Right, had to go see him. Something like 3
A little bit, yeah, I want to go into more.
Yeah, it is such a, I remember that house when you go.
Yeah.
Every day they were really dogs eating
all
and
kinds of stuff
stuff.
like, oh, I was like, oh.